I've always wanted to do. And I really,
I think we're gonna get started because there's not much, and then we can go ahead and chat afterwards since we have our online attendees. We're gonna go ahead and get started. So appreciate everybody being here in Glen Allen. We have Shannon Saavedra, and then we have Lindsay Malone's our finance manager. Lisa Howard's the admin and HR manager. She oversees kind of some of our tariff changes. And then online we have Shanna Conway, Chris Hall with Recharge Alaska, and then Allison Sayer with the Copper River Record. And then Valdez, we have Barry Jackman is our Chief Operating Officer, and then Jeff Sachs is one of our board members in Valdez, and then Morgan Melton is our Chief Communications Officer. So we kind of have the team here. So just in general, kind of the agenda that's going to go, we're going to talk today kind of why we're here. We're going to talk about what our requirements are, the specific changes and proposed changes that we're going through, what the impact is to members, and then we'll take questions and comments. We're a pretty small group, so if there's anybody that has kind of questions throughout, definitely chime in. We'll also have just a Q&A at the end if there's anything else as well. So we'll kind of just start. I do want to caveat too, we will talk about this at the annual meeting here in a few weeks, mainly because we don't usually get high attendance at these public meetings. So we want to make sure that this information is discussed and members are aware of it. So why are we here? Tariff requirement, and one of the things we learned, I think, just from some of the online comments and postings and advertised we were doing is there are a lot of members that don't realize what a tariff is, which is the utilities rules and regulations. And I think it's been interesting with some of the federal discussions on tariff and charges. They kind of relate that to we're raising rates, and we're not. That's not what these changes are about. But what happened basically back in 1998 when CVEA became self-regulated, there was a set of procedures and rules, and hey, Sharon Daniels has joined us. So there was, when we got out of regulation in 98 and our board is self-regulated, what the decision was is we're going to still continue with the same set of rules if we change anything. So our board can't just change rules, management can't just change rules. It has to go through the public comment period. So these are sections that are specific, that are in our tariff, that anytime there's changes, we have to develop a record through public comments. It has to be fair and non-discriminatory treatment of all members. And specifically, there's a section in there about rates that says, you know, they have to be set to ensure the financial viability of the co-op. And then we actually get a statement from general counsel. And this just makes sure that any changes we're going to make are complying with our bylaws, our articles. There's no laws we're violating. So that just kind of sets out the tariff requirement. And I had mentioned, Sharon, that a lot of some of the comments online is with all the tariff discussions federally, and that's what a lot of members, they don't realize what a tariff is kind of for our rules and regulations. So one of the components of this is that we are required to have a public hearing, which is what this is. We're going to present changes, receive any comments and questions relating to the changes. We will post a recording of this as well under our tariff change section. And then we will actually, as mentioned, we're going to also talk about this at our annual meeting, not really in depth, but at least make sure members are aware of it. And then any comments received. So I give our board of director kind of research we do, people that attend, any comments received, good or bad, or, you know, just in support, whatever it might be. And they'll take into consideration any comments that are made. So they're required to issue their decision within 30 days of the close of the public hearings, which we're considering kind of as the annual meeting, and they will actually approve or not approve these at the June 18th board meeting. So that just kind of sets our timeline. And again, we will mention this just in case there are public comments on that. So specifically today, we have 3 proposed tariff changes that we're making. And I would step back and also say we don't do this all the time. We've done some pretty extensive changes to our tariff in terms of sections over time. We've added net metering. We've allowed special use type meters, changes to construction processes. We did some of that last year, but we usually take a look at that once a year to say, is there anything we need to change? Because it's a pretty, I would say, not only extensive, but also there's costs involved because you have your attorney look at it. We just want to be conscious about all of that. So we take a look once a year. And then again, we usually time it like this because we have a big audience. When we have our annual meeting between both districts, we usually have almost 500 people in attendance when you add the both. So making sure, again, members are aware of that. So we're going to go through three kind of in more detail. But one, we have a proposed change to our business office location. And again, we'll have time to kind of dissect each one of these. We're proposing that we close our office by 30 minutes at 5:30. And we have some data that will kind of go over this. Financing assistance. This is one of the sections that we offer a construction loan. If people want to build a new service and they can't afford it, we will actually offer a loan. Well, what we found, and this only one has happened, but we decided to make a tariff change for it. We had someone that took out a loan and then they disconnected because they were seasonal. And we found we still need to bill them for that loan. So we're making a requirement that we have a year-round member, at least that they stay connected. So we actually have a way to bill them every year. And then the third change is a new rate schedule. And we're looking at for electric vehicles. And we'll again dive into that a little more detail. So I'm gonna kind of take each one individually, and that allows for discussion for that. So the first one is our business office hours. Just kind of some data. This came up as a recommendation with employees, mostly because a majority of our workforce with our flexibility leaves at 5:30. And so it leaves our customer service rep in each office in Valdez and Glen Ellen. So we've actually been tracking in-office visits for the last a little over a year. And in 2025, in total for the year, we had 19 visits in both districts. So we had 4 people that came into the office between 5:30 and 6 for the whole year in Glen Ellen, and we had 15 in Valdez. So a little bit higher traffic, which is a little less than 1.5% of our visits. And so far this year, we have had 5 total visits in both districts, which is less than 1.2%. And all of those visits were actually in Glen Ellen. So we're taking a look at that. I think one of the things we've been looking at is we do open at 7 a.m. So this was one of the things when we made our change to close on Fridays. We decided to open our hours from 7 to 6. So that gave more hours per member and outside of regular business hours. So what this change would do is reduce our office hours from 44 hours a week to 42 hours a week. We did poll other businesses in the area, other services, which I could bring that up, but I'm trying to make it about us, not really everybody else, but really the only other business that is open more is the phone company. And it's a little bit different. They have retail section, but when you look at the banks and some of the local businesses, they've also kind of reduced hours. So we're just looking at it for more efficiency. When we talk to our board about this, I think the one big thing is we don't want this to be a surprise at the annual meeting. We don't want members to be surprised by it. So we've actually been polling members. When members come in the front desk, we say, you know, how will this impact you? What do you think? I know at the last chamber meeting, I also brought it up. So we have actually proactively reached out to over 60 contacts, and that's kind of touch point. So like the chamber meeting was 1 contact, there was at least 19 people there. So just, again, making sure nobody's surprised about it. And so far, out of all the people we've talked to, we've had 2 that were kind of in opposition, like, no, I like to come in the office and I want more hours. And that was kind of the general discussion on it. So is there any questions or just comments on that? How anybody thinks it would negatively impact our community or Any feedback? Did you have anything to add on that, Lindsay? I know your team's been tracking.
No, I
everything.
don't think so.
Okay.
How many people come in between 7 and 8 in the morning?
So far this year, we've had about 400 office visits.
Before it.
Total.
Before the 5:30 to 6 p.m. time frame.
But I don't know that we've tracked specifically from 7 to 8 a.m.
No, we have not tracked 7 to 8 a.m.
But
We've just done 7 to 5:30 and then 5:30 to 6 o'clock. So 400 is
That's a
total.
great question.
So have you considered alternating your hours in the morning rather than in the afternoon? If there's nobody coming in between 7 and 7:30, would that not be an option that you guys should consider? Is that should be the variance of the time? Because if you've got 0 between 7 and 7:30, you actually have a pull to go to that route
Yeah.
rather than the evening route. And I don't know what customers do. I'm
Yeah.
retired now.
I'm fairly certain we don't have many during that time frame. It's pretty unusual. You know, sometimes during construction season, we'll get the one-offs that are a little earlier or a little later, but it's something we could definitely take a look at. It did take us a year to come up with the data that we have here. But we can definitely, change the way we're tracking things a little bit to see what that looks
Great.
like.
Yeah, great question.
That'd be good
Yeah.
to know that also.
And
And you don't have much, if you have the same amount of people coming in between 7 and 7:30 in the morning as you have between the 5:30 and 6, there's some changes that could be made there also.
Yeah, good comment. One of the other things tying at least the office hours to is in our contract for our linemen and availability. Their schedule is 7 to 5:30, so that is one thing that we've kind of found that we have an issue, we have a problem, and it's 5:40. We still got to call them in, and so we can be open all day long. But if there was something we had to deal with, so that's kind of why we've tied it. And and part of we don't have enough staff on rotating really people. I know back, and that was other staff, we used to do different schedules for working a Friday and working a Monday, but we have one customer service rep in each district, and then our accounting position backs up in this district, and then we have an admin position in Valdez. So really 3 kind of clerical positions in each district to rotate that. So when we looked at actually closing on Friday, that was a lot of data that we took to support the decision to actually close Fridays. And when we did that, there was a little bit of an adjustment for members. There was a couple that made comments. We'll get the occasional, we didn't know you were closed on Fridays. But for the most part, I think members adapted pretty well. And the reality too, with our dispatch being open, if there is a problem with the meter, or we will, Lindsay's available, and we have others available too that will take care of an issue. And we've never denied a member even that walks in, even at 6 o'clock, like we're gonna help take care of them. Any questions from anybody online, just on office hours? All right. So the next one, as I mentioned, financing assistance. This is a pretty simple, it would have impacted, I think, one member in the last at least 20 years since I've been here at CVEA. We're adding language that states a member receiving an installment loan, which is a loan for construction. So again, if somebody has, they're building a new service, they have an upgrade, we will actually finance that. And that's a whole separate program. So again, the issue is we found that if a customer doesn't actually have a bill, we can't actually bill them. And in this member's case, we worked with them, we got it paid, but in the future, it would make it easier just to state that they have 12 months of service. And so that way it can be billed within our normal billing process and not outside. So that's a pretty simple. Any questions on that one?
How many customers did you have in the last couple of years that had that issue with?
One, we've had one in 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you remember how many loans I think we've done?
Probably close to 10 last year.
Yeah. So it's kind of a hit or miss, but it's a good program for people that want to finance that.
And they don't have to use electricity, but they have to keep it on.
Yes.
So they have to pay the customer charge
Yep.
at least.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, they don't have to have any usage.
Yeah.
Nope, just paying the monthly bill.
Plus the contract. Yes.
So the third one is a new rate schedule. So this actually started when I became CEO a little over 2 years ago, and I had a coffee with the CEO and ideas of things to change. And this is something that came up on having basically a separate rate schedule for electric vehicle charging stations. And currently, there's only one. People have smaller charging systems within their own homes or garages. We don't track that. This is a separate metered. It's located up here in the Copper Basin, the one by Subway. But the state and different people have been looking at various charging stations throughout our service territory between here and Valdez. We are the only utility on the road system that don't have an established electric vehicle rate schedule. And part of that is we are the only utility that is not regulated by the Regulatory Commission of Alaska. And so we weren't forced to have an EV rate schedule like other utilities were. So that's a little bit of the background. There is a pot of money with the state and Alaska Energy Authority and other funds, which I'm not as familiar because this is not something CVEA is pursuing for charging stations. But from what we understand and the feedback we've got is there is grant funding that is disqualified if there is a KW charge, which is a demand charge that only large commercial members pay. And it is an additional charge. And why is it? Barry could go into more technical if needed. But when you have a large service that demands a lot of power, you have to build a bigger service to that location. And so all of our large commercial customers pay $12 per KW. What we looked at is actually, so when we discussed this first with our board, I would say, is the board was supportive of it, but the biggest thing was we don't want our current members to be subsidizing a transient population. So as long as we can get creative rate-wise and they pay the same charge in a different way, that would be something that we would notice. And that's what we're doing here today. So a good example is, and Chris, I may ask you to chime in if you want to kind of get a little more technical, but from what I understand is the one here at Subway, they ramp it down to charge a vehicle. It can charge a lot faster, but it uses a larger amount of power. And what would happen is that would bump them into the large commercial rate category, where now that meter specifically is in the small commercial rate category. So what we did to come up with this, we worked with our rate consultant, is essentially you're converting that same amount of revenue to a kilowatt hour charge. And in this case, what we did is we took our total revenue for our Valdez large commercial members, because that's a majority of where our large commercial load is in Valdez. And we divided the amount of revenue we received for demand only, and we divided that by the total kilowatt hours of that same category. So essentially, we would collect the same amount of revenue in a different way. So this category would not have a KW charge of $12. They would have a 3.74 cent kilowatt hour charge for every kilowatt hour they use. So it would be collecting the same amount of revenue in a different way. We wrote into the tariff, and again, the details are online. I did have a few printed copies of exactly what that change looks like. It's our rate schedule that is the exact same, essentially, as our large commercial rate class, the same rules. You would just do a distribution delivery charge. So it would be a wording change, and they would pay that on each kilowatt hour. So again, meeting the goal of what CVEA's, and I've had some questions just in the community of how does this affect me as a residential and a small commercial member, and it does not. The mechanism we built into the rate schedule would be that trues up every year. So it actually, that rate would have been higher the prior year. Again, large commercial categories change, or the load changes within that category. And so when the rate is automatically set for 2027, we would base that on true real data from 2026. So it would be a true up mechanism where we wouldn't have to go through the tariff change. This category of rate class, just like every other member on our system. It doesn't matter if you're industrial or residential. Close to 75% of our revenue collected is fuel, it's generation, transmission. So this class of members pays the exact same charges of everybody else. You know, in the summer, we're on hydro and hopefully have very low fuel charges. And then in the winter, when we have higher fuel charges. So that's what this category does. And I'll just
Jamie?
leave it at there. Yes.
So
Go ahead,
there
Lauren.
was, Allison put a question in the comments or in the
Okay.
messages, and I think it's on your.
Thank
I
you.
think
I can't
captured
see
it.
that. Okay. Could you say it out loud, or I could just have Alice or turn on my.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the unit, just to make sure I understand the unit. So is it $0.0374? Is it 3.74 cents? I just wanted
Yeah,
to
so it's-
clarify.
Yep, 3.74 cents per kilowatt hour.
Okay, I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
Jamie,
we
if I
can-
could,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say if I could jump in and just state a few more things. So the EV charger there in Glen Allen does have transient folks that come on through. So you're selling electricity to non-member people. So it's a way to capture new revenue source by, not as very large as comparison to what we see in the Anchorage side, but it is a growing source. And so for instance, so far this year, 2026, we've seen an increase from first quarter to first quarter, an increase of 69% utilization there at that charging station. And so this is people that are either driving through Glen Allen, up and down between Fairbanks and Anchorage, stuff like that. And so seeing utilization increase is also something that is good to see. I would think for the utility guys, this is not a fixed revenue source anymore. This is a transient from people that are not part of the utility coming in and paying the utility through Recharge Alaska in order to get electricity. And so it just opens up a new revenue source. And what we are doing, you are correct about nerfing the charger. The charger current capability is up to 60 kW, and we nerf it down to 47.5 kW. And so that way our demand, I think our last month demand was 49.56 kW. And so it's right on that cusp of jumping into that large commercial. And that's what we try to run. It's just as much as we can to that large commercial so we can give as much power to the end user as possible. And with this new rate structure, we'd be able to open it up to 60 and then also plan on going up to 120, which is the size of our grid connection right there without any additional back end stuff from CVEA. It's just providing more power to the end user.
Yeah, thank you for commenting on that. And is there still planned sites between here and Valdez through, I know we've had discussions with other members, and you don't have to comment on that.
So we were working with somebody in Valdez. They were all the way up until ready to pull the trigger and then backed out due to some complexity issues. And so we don't have current funding allocated. However, with this rate structure, it does start pulling dollars from other utility basins that have the rate structure in place to be able to look into CVEA, because there are a lot of places being Valdez is in the line, and then also a place in between, so that way we can capture folks who go fishing, on the Copper River, or who want to go snow machining in Thompson Pass and still be able to make it back to Glen Allen without having to go away into Valdez, or vice versa. So there are some things that we are looking at, but now that there's a new rate structure being discussed, it does allow capital to start flowing that direction for these projects.
Perfect, thank you.
I have a question, that is, how long has that station here roughly been on the system?
Can you speak to that, Chris? I don't have that data in front of me.
Yes, so we turned it on, I think it was a day before Christmas 2023. We apparently like to do things during the middle of winter time for some apparent reason.
A little
So
over
we
2 years.
currently have 2 years of data on that.
We do, yeah.
Okay, and did you look at both years when you were considering?
Well, so that's the thing, is this rate is completely independent. It's not just looking at one member, because the way our rates are structured are based on rate classes of members. And so we have made, the only idea we were converting is that $12 kW to make sure we're still recovering those demand charges in a different way. So it's based on the rest of our demand charges or the demand of the system in that category of members.
Did you look at how much they had used of our system in 2024?
We do have that data, but it wasn't really relevant for setting this rate. Because those were kilowatt hours we've received. So if there is growth in this, I guess I can talk out the other side. If there is growth in this category of members, it would make the kilowatt hours go up, which means the rate would actually, so in high kilowatt hour years, which that category of members on the higher demand system is, you've got RV parks, you've got seafood processors. Up here, we have Princess, we have Harp. There's not a huge category of members, but it would just add to those kilowatt hours, which essentially would make that rate go down, is what you could look at. We did model the prior year when we were looking at what to propose. And the prior year, I think it was actually 3.9 cents a kilowatt hour because it was less kilowatt hours the prior year. So we looked at a few years of data, but we're not setting the rate for just one person. We want to make sure, because if when you set this rate too, we want to make sure they're paying equal amount as our other large commercial members.
Right.
And that's how we looked at it. So more growth, he's absolutely right. More growth is good for our system because in a sense, that means you can lower that cost per kilowatt hour. It's almost a supply and a demand. And you kind of think of it like Costco. If you can buy in bulk, it is cheaper. Great question. All right, any other questions or comments just from online? So those are really our three tariff changes. As mentioned, we will make a record of who's here, and if you want to any formal comments on the public notice on everything, you can email that. And my email's on there. You can do customerservice@cva.org. Submit anything, and then we'll just, again, we continue to develop a record specifically on the office hours because we're constantly reaching out. That way our board has all that data so they can vote on that June 18th at their regular board meeting. And if this is adopted, changes will be effective July 1st, which for the EV charging rate would be with the July 20th billing, just to be specific. All right, any other questions? No? All right, and this little bit. Go ahead.
I do have one. I just was wondering, I just want to make sure I understand. I'm not like challenging anybody. When you were talking about could you re-explain that changing the billing units would affect funding for EV stations? I think I just don't understand. So maybe if you could repeat it. I'm sorry.
Yep. So from what I understand, and I may ask Chris because he's definitely more familiar with the grant funding programs out there for EV charging stations. That's just not something CVEA's done. But what we understand is there is a separate section of money that's available. And one of the disqualifications of that funding is if there is a demand charge. Am I explaining that right, Chris?
Sort of. So the demand charge just means that I would go in with equipment that doesn't exceed that demand because the cost to operate. So like if I have a charger that spits out 120 kilowatts, I'd pull 125 on the demand times 12. That's, roughly $1,500 per month. And so the cost to get that back on, say, 1,000 kilowatts sold to end users winds up being $1.50 per kilowatt hour. And that is an excessive price for anybody to purchase. And so we evaluate sites and locations based on what the cost to operate and what the cost to the consumer would look like. And being that the cost would come down and we would stay within that margin that we currently are offering at 55 cents a kilowatt hour, which is more attainable by the consumer base in the Glen Allen and other regions to travel through Glen Allen and to Glen Allen. It offers us an opportunity to look at other locations within CVEA for funding large projects, and I would anticipate larger than what we currently have there in Glen Allen as well, because fast charging is what people want. Less time charging, the more time they can spend on the road.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other part of it, and from when we started talking about this 2 years ago, is grant programs and guidelines and rules have changed as well, specifically under this administration compared to the last. So I'm not sure if that still applies, that disqualifies, because I'm not sure how much grant money there is out there federally. I know Alaska Energy Authority, there is still a pot of money for development and growth of these charging systems, specifically on the road system. So does that clarify it, Allison?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right. Any other questions on that, or is there any other questions? I'll just use this as a shameless plug a little bit. We got our annual meeting coming up here in a couple of weeks. So I will be giving a presentation specifically on, what our accomplishments were the last year, and also talking about some of the projects we have on the plate for this year. And just really what's going on with CVEA. So we invite you to that. We're kind of bringing back the beater program of a vehicle in each district. So we'll see if that, increases some of our numbers, but just want to make sure everybody's invited. And if there's questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, so like 1st of July, the tariff will be like $2,000 a month plus the electric.
No, so you kind of, you missed the original part of the presentation. So this is not tariff like changes federally or extra charges being added. CVEA's tariff is our set of rules and regulations that we have to follow. And so we are not making any changes to rate in these proposed changes. We're proposing that we reduce our office hours and we close at 5:30, not 6 o'clock. We have a requirement that if you finance a construction project, that you have to have a bill 12 months a year. And then our third one, which you were here for some of that discussion, is we're going to do a new rate schedule for electric vehicle charging stations. So for the residential and the small commercial member, these are not rate changes. That was some of the discussion on Facebook, but these are not changes to our rates.
Are you involved in that cables in the ground going towards Metasta?
Cables in the ground.
Yeah.
Telephone. That's the phone company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the phone company. I believe that's their fiber project. So that's
Because
not CVEA.
They went across our land, they try to go around it.
Yeah, that's not the electric company.
We tell them we own all of it, you can go back there, we still own the land.
Yeah, no, that's not us.
So this won't be any,
No, this is not rates. No, this is, as mentioned, our biggest impact to our community, and that's what we want to make sure we get feedback is on our office hour change. And we presented some information, which I can go over with you afterwards, on how many people actually come through the door between 5:30 and 6 o'clock.
oh,
And in our Glen Allen district, I think we've had, what did I say, 4 or 5 this year, and a total of 19 people in all of last year. So people tend to, we're open longer hours, so we're
Yeah.
just getting a feel.
I came here a couple of times, there was nobody here.
Yeah, we close at 6 o'clock, so we're open from 7 to 6 right now,
Mhm.
Monday through Thursday.
That was during the day,
Oh,
cause I wanted it, marked where the wire is in the ground.
we should be here. Our doors are open every day, so.
We did get a better open sign in the last year. so
We did have comments
complaints
from,
on that.
yes, from members on that, specifically, so they could see the open sign, so.
But there won't
Just
be
as-
any money charged?
No.
Coming up or?
No. No, we have so we noticed, gosh, we are, and we'll talk about that at the annual meeting. We are in year 4 of our base rate changes that we noticed, again, 3 years ago. And that change, that goes in effect this summer, that's been in progress for the last couple of years. And I'll just generally speak to that is, we had a plan for addressing our aging infrastructure. Because our whole system is getting old, and that's at the annual meeting. I encourage you to attend, because we'll talk about how CVEA spends our money, what we do our maintenance on, from our diesel units to our hydro units, and just making sure we maintain what we have so we can keep the lights on. And then lately, although it's not a noticed here, but one of the impacts to our members is fuel costs. We all see what we're paying at the fuel pump. We see in our heating fuel, and that's something CVEA had to adjust rates last month because our diesel fuel costs have gone up. I think it's over $1.50 a gallon, and right now we're generating, I think it's 45% with diesel today. We typically have our turnaround for our hydro units around May 11th is our turnaround date, and we were just talking about how we kind of do the rain dance for Valdez because rain and water means low electric bills for us. So that's usually around May 11th is when that happens. So we all like that because everybody's rates go down for hydro.
It's solar power help.
We've looked at solar. Some members have it just like the hub and others, but nothing that has been commercially sustainable, because that's one thing with Copper Valley Electric. We generate, we have 2 hydro projects and we have excess hydro in the summer. So it doesn't make sense when we have all this sunshine, when we have extra water to generate power. But that's, we can actually print you a copy. That is one of the things CVEA published in January of this year, is a paper on what are we doing on tidal? What are we doing on solar? What are we doing on wind? All the different technologies that we've looked at and how we look at them. Because that's kind of part of our jobs, is we're always looking at, you know, if there's a way. One of our strategic goals is to reduce our dependence on diesel fuel. And even though the average of 25, we only used about 10% of diesel to generate, it'd be great if we didn't have to do that, because that's an expensive way to generate electricity. So we can print that out for you before you leave.
Yeah, I was thinking hooking up to solar.
Yep, we do have our net metering program. So we still, and I'm not sure what credits are available out there still for residential and small commercial members, but we do have our net metering program, which is essentially if you generate more power than you use, CVEA will buy that back from you. So that was a tariff change we actually made last year in 2025, where we reinstated that net metering credit. And so again, back to, if you do implement solar and you generate more than you use, we will buy that back from you. So we still have that program in place. And again, I'm not sure what credits are available out there, but sometimes there's federal incentives to.
Yeah, I was looking at federal. It wouldn't be a big solar, it would just be a small.
Yep, enough to generate your own.
Yeah.
So. All right, any other questions online? Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate everybody attending tonight. And again, we hope to see you at the annual meeting in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, thanks,
Thanks,
Chris. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you, guys.